Have you ever found yourself in this incredibly frustrating situation, like where you spend hours, maybe even days or weeks, just preparing for a specific moment?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Right. You study all the rules, you memorize the facts, you build up this massive reservoir of knowledge.
You've got the theory totally locked down.
Exactly. The theory is locked down. But then, the moment actually arrives, it's time to perform, to actually step up and execute, and you completely freeze.
Yeah, your mind just goes totally blank.
Your mind goes blank, your heart rate spikes, and all of that meticulous preparation just vanishes into thin air.
It is honestly a universally humbling human experience. You possess the data, but the neurological pathway between storing that data and physically executing the action it abruptly short circuits.
Right.
It just leaves you feeling like you are trapped in your own head.
And that specific short circuit is exactly what we are digging into today. So we're looking at a really insightful excerpt from a piece called The Art of Simple Conversation, which originally comes from the Easy English podcast.
Yes, it's a great source.
It really is. And our mission for this deep dive is to explore the massive and frankly often intimidating gap between theoretical learning and real-world application. And we are looking at this specifically through the lens of language learning, which, I would argue is the ultimate pressure test for theory versus practice.
Well, without a doubt. Language learning is the perfect crucible to examine this phenomenon. Because, a person can sit in a quiet room and memorize verb conjugations for thousands of hours.
Right, just grilling flashcards.
Exactly. But language is not a solitary academic subject. At its core, it's a dynamic, highly unpredictable social tool.
Totally.
And the source text lays out a clear premise from the very beginning, which is that everyday conversations do not need to be perfect. They simply need to be natural.
Which, it sounds completely reasonable on the surface, right? Just be natural.
Easier said than done.
So much easier said than done. Because, as we're going to explore, achieving a quote-unquote natural state is incredibly complex when your brain is trapped in this cycle of perfectionism.
Definitely.
So to understand the actual mechanics of how we build practical confidence, the text provides this really fascinating case study. We follow the journey of a learner named Emma.
Yes, Emma.
And she represents the classic example of what happens when your knowledge on paper just completely refuses to translate into action when there is an actual living, breathing human being standing in front of you.
I think Emma's profile will likely resonate with anyone who has ever attempted to acquire a complex new skill as an adult.
Oh, for sure.
Because the text establishes that by all traditional academic metrics, she is a phenomenal student. She studies consistently. She possesses a deep understanding of complex grammar structure.
She does the work.
She really does. She has built an impressive, extensive vocabulary. She has put in those arduous hours of study.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I think there is a really powerful analogy we can draw here.
Okay, let's hear it.
So, Emma's situation reminds me of someone who has memorized a massive encyclopedic culinary cookbook.
Oh, I like that.
Right. She knows the exact chemical process of the Maillard reaction. She knows the technical difference between julienning and dicing a vegetable.
She can recite the precise ingredient list for a complex French mother sauce entirely from memory.
Yes, exactly. But despite all of that knowledge, she is absolutely terrified to walk into a kitchen, turn on the stove, and actually crack an egg.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredibly accurate.
It really forces us to question the traditional academic approach we use for so many disciplines. Why does this method of front-loading grammar and vocabulary memorization fail so spectacularly in the real world?
Well, what's fascinating here is the underlying educational psychology driving that failure. The traditional academic approach is fundamentally designed to teach us how to pass tests.
Right.
And tests, by their very nature, are binary environments. An answer is either right or it is wrong.
There's no gray area.
None. You lose points for a misplaced comma, a misspelled word, or, an incorrect verb tense. And because of this, Emma's brain has been systematically trained over years to view language as a minefield where mistakes are just heavily, heavily penalized.
So she isn't looking at language as a way to connect with someone. She's looking at it as a test she is about to fail.
Precisely. She is suffering from an intense psychological block created by the perfection trap.
The perfection trap.
Yeah. When she is standing in front of a coworker or a cashier, She is not genuinely trying to communicate a thought. She is frantically trying to construct a flawlessly engineered sentence in her head before she even opens her mouth.
Which is just an exhausting way to live. And the text highlights just how paralyzing this is for her by detailing her specific triggers.
And they're very common triggers.
Very common. Like, we are not talking about the pressure of giving a keynote address at a huge industry conference. We are talking about the most mundane, everyday interactions imaginable. Greeting people in the hallway, ordering food at a local restaurant, making basic small talk before a meeting, answering phone calls.
The things most people don't even think twice about.
Exactly. But whenever someone speaks to her at a normal conversational speed, she becomes completely overwhelmed with anxiety.
Yeah, and the source material actually gives us a direct window into her internal monologue during those moments of panic.
Right, the question she asks herself.
Yes, her brain is constantly firing off two very specific fear-based questions. The first is, what if I say something wrong? And the second is, what if I don't understand?
Just playing on a loop.
A constant looping soundtrack in her head. And the biological result of that anxiety is a classic freeze response.
She just shuts down.
Completely.
Yeah.
Emma often just stays completely quiet. She retreats inward, choosing silence over the perceived risk of making a public error.
So if her brain has essentially built this impenetrable fortress to protect her from the pain of making mistakes, what actually forces her to step out of it? I mean, she is living in this anxious bubble, but something has to give, right?
Well, the catalyst for change rarely comes from a sudden burst of positive inspiration. I mean, we'd like it to, but it usually stems from a place of deep, undeniable frustration.
Pain is a good teacher.
It really is.
Yeah.
Discomfort is a much more effective motivator than comfort when it comes to altering ingrained human behavior.
And the text details that breaking point for her. So one evening, Emma has an incredibly awkward conversation at work.
Yeah, we've all been there.
Right. The source doesn't give us the excruciating word-for-word transcript of the interaction, thankfully, but it notes that she walks away feeling immensely frustrated with herself.
That frustration is key.
It is, because that frustration acts as a wedge. It forces her to have this profound realization about her entire methodology. She finally acknowledges that she is spending, like, the vast majority of her time studying the abstract mechanics of grammar and almost zero time practicing actual real-world communication.
She finally recognizes the fatal flaw in her system. And what is really critical to observe here is her immediate reaction the very next morning.
She changes everything.
She completely overhauls her approach. She deliberately shifts her focus away from theoretical input and pivots entirely toward practical output. She just starts assembling a brand new toolkit designed around natural everyday speech patterns.
And the specifics of this new toolkit are really telling. Like, while she is drinking her coffee in the morning, she stops drilling flashcards.
She abandons the grammar exercises.
Completely. Instead, she just starts listening to simple English conversations online. She deliberately exposes her brain to basic phrases. Things like, how's your day going? Or, what did you do yesterday?
Just the foundational connective tissue of human interaction.
Exactly. And she revamps her reading materials as well, moving away from those dense, rule-heavy textbooks.
Right. The source notes, she begins utilizing materials specifically designed for narrative context.
Yes, the text mentions she picks up short stories in English for beginners, which is part of the Teach Yourself series, and another collection called Learn English Through Stories. 16 stories to improve your English grammar and English vocabulary.
Which is such a smarter approach.
It really is. She is immersing herself in dialogues and narratives rather than abstract lists of rules. And alongside this, she develops a really fascinating new audio habit.
Oh, this part is brilliant.
Every evening, she listens to an audio program called Effortless English. Learn to speak English like a native. But she isn't sitting passively at a desk taking notes, you know?
Right. No desk.
No desk. She listens while cooking dinner or while walking outside. And as she listens, she physically repeats simple phrases out loud to herself. Phrases like, I'm doing well, thanks, or that sounds interesting.
And this raises a really important question about how we actually define the act of speaking, because, we tend to conceptualize speaking as a purely mental exercise.
Like retrieving vocabulary and applying grammar rules.
Exactly. But speaking is heavily physiological. It is a highly complex motor skill.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. And honestly, I want to challenge Emma's new strategy just a bit here.
Okay, let's hear it.
Because if my goal is to overcome a crippling, paralyzing fear of talking to other human beings, And my solution is to walk around my empty kitchen while I am chopping onions, muttering, I'm doing well thanks to the wall.
Right.
I mean, how on earth does that prepare me for the unpredictable, messy reality of a live conversation?
That's a fair question.
Right, an audio program doesn't interrupt you, a book doesn't suddenly change the subject, your kitchen wall doesn't look at you weirdly if you mispronounce a vowel.
No, it doesn't.
It just feels like she's building a different kind of safe bubble.
Well, it is a completely valid challenge. I mean, on the surface, practicing alone in a kitchen seems entirely artificial. It totally lacks the social stakes of a real interaction.
Exactly.
However, if we examine the biological mechanics of what she is achieving with those specific reading and audio routines, it reveals a brilliant bridge between theory and reality.
Okay, how so?
Well, let's look at the reading material first. By utilizing narrative storytelling, those short story collections you mentioned, she is observing vocabulary in its natural habitat.
Okay.
She isn't staring at a word isolated on a flashcard. She is experiencing that word embedded within an emotional context within a character's dialogue.
Oh, so it has meaning.
Exactly. This allows the adult brain to create an episodic memory rather than a semantic one, mapping the pattern of the language naturally instead of just, relying on logical computation.
That makes total sense. The story provides a framework of context that a memorized list completely lacks. It gives the word a sense of place and purpose.
And that contextual learning directly supports her solitary audio practice.
Yeah.
So when you asked how muttering to herself while chopping onions helps her in the real world,
Yeah, the onion chopping.
it comes back to that idea of speaking as a motor skill. To produce a single spoken sentence, your brain has to coordinate your diaphragm for breath control, send electrical signals to your vocal cords, and precisely position your tongue, jaw, and lips to create sounds that are entirely foreign to your native muscle memory.
Wow. So it is literally an athletic movement for the muscles in your face and throat.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
By physically repeating those phrases out loud, how was your day?
Ah,
That sounds interesting over and over while engaged in a low-stakes physical activity like cooking or walking. She is training those specific muscles.
so she's building muscle memory.
Yes, she is actively bypassing the conscious analytical part of her brain, the prefrontal cortex that is obsessed with getting the grammar perfect. She is building what neuroscientists call automaticity.
Oh, wow. So when she is finally face to face with a real human being and her anxiety spikes, she doesn't have to consciously compute how to construct the phrase, I am doing well.
Exactly. Her mouth already knows how to execute the physical movement because she has practiced that specific motor pattern hundreds of times.
That's incredible.
She has effectively bridged the gap between merely knowing a word intellectually and being able to access it physically under the immense pressure of a social interaction.
So it takes the pressure off.
It does. She is lowering her cognitive load. She doesn't have to invent the sentence from scratch while someone is staring at her. She simply initiates a physical habit she has already solidified.
Okay, that reframes the solitary practice completely for me. She isn't avoiding the real world. She is building the physical infrastructure needed to survive it.
You do that.
But, I mean, eventually you do have to step out of the kitchen. You have to open the front door and actually test that infrastructure.
Yes, you do.
And the text does not sugarcoat this transition phase at all. It clearly acknowledges that when Emma first begins trying to speak in real-world scenarios, it is incredibly uncomfortable.
Of course it is.
She pauses too much. She forgets words. She knows she has practiced. It is a very messy, halting process.
But that uncomfortable transition phase is unavoidable. Anytime you move a skill from a controlled environment to a chaotic one, there will be friction.
Always.
The crucial difference in Emma's case is her response to that friction. Despite the intense discomfort, she continues to practice.
She doesn't give up.
No. Little by little, interaction by interaction, she refuses to let the friction push her back into silence.
And that persistence inevitably leads to a beautiful milestone moment. So the source details a specific interaction that happens in the most ordinary setting imaginable.
A small local cafe.
A small local cafe. Emma walks in, and the cashier smiles and asks her a question she has literally practiced in her kitchen. How's your day going?
The ultimate test.
The ultimate test. And the text sets up the stakes perfectly here. It notes that the old Emma, the one paralyzed by the perfection trap, would have utilized a protective mechanism.
Right.
She would have given a single, closed-off, one-word answer.
Good. Which, is a brilliant defense strategy if your only goal is avoiding errors. The less you speak, the less surface area you provide for a mistake.
Yeah, exactly. But this time, she has done the physical reps. She smiles and she replies, "It's going well, thank you. I had a busy morning, but I'm feeling good now."
Such a huge step.
The cashier smiles warmly back, says, "That's great to hear," and the interaction naturally concludes. It's a fleeting, simple moment. But for Emma, it is a monumental breakthrough.
It is tangible proof that her new methodology actually works.
Yes. But, I want to pull on that thread, actually, because if we look closely at that specific sentence she delivered at the cafe, "It's going well, thank you. I had a busy morning, but I'm feeling good now." There is not a single piece of complex advanced grammar in there.
Not at all.
There is zero high-level vocabulary. It is perhaps the most mundane sequence of words imaginable. So why is this entirely basic, unexceptional sentence such a massive victory for her?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it reveals a profound truth about the nature of human communication. Fluent conversation does not originate from perfect syntax.
Okay.
It originates from a willingness to engage. That seemingly mundane sentence is a victory because it represents a psychological shift from defense to offense.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, she wasn't just regurgitating a protective one-word shield to end the interaction as quickly as possible. By adding, "I had a busy morning," she offered a piece of personal context.
Right, she actually shared something.
Exactly. That is a social volley. It serves as an invitation for connection, signaling to the other person that she is open to a brief shared experience.
So she stepped into the actual flow of the conversation rather than just bracing for impact.
Exactly. And that is the core insight of this entire case study. True confidence is not derived from complexity.
It's not about big words.
No, it is not dependent on utilizing impressive vocabulary or deploying flawless grammatical structures. Confidence is rooted in successful connection.
Wow.
And once you experience that successful connection, even on the most foundational, basic level, it initiates a positive feedback loop.
And the text illustrates that feedback loop beautifully. It outlines these wonderful ripple effects that begin to spread into her professional life shortly after that cafe milestone.
Yes, her whole demeanor changes.
A few weeks later, her behavior at work shifts noticeably. She begins actively asking her coworkers questions. She joins in on group discussions much more easily. She is even laughing more during team meetings.
She has finally discarded the heavy, restrictive armor of perfectionism.
Yeah.
Without that massive cognitive load weighing her down, her actual personality is allowed to surface. She is no longer just the quiet observer in the corner. She is an active, contributing participant in her own environment.
She even receives the ultimate external validation. One day, a coworker looks at her and simply says, "You sound much more confident now."
Which is the best thing you can hear.
The text notes how much pride that single comment brings her. She finally understands, on a practical level, that simple, accessible language is more than enough.
It is a realization that entirely reframes the ultimate goal of learning any new skill. The objective is not to become an error-free machine.
So, what does this all mean for you listening right now? We started this deep dive by exploring that terrifying, paralyzing feeling of freezing up when it is time to perform, despite having all the theoretical knowledge in the world.
Right.
The lessons extracted from Emma's journey and the core philosophy of the art of simple conversation offer a very clear, actionable roadmap out of that paralysis.
They really do.
Theoretical knowledge is a necessary foundation, but it's not the actual building. You have to practice the physical, mechanical act of doing the thing.
Exactly. Small, simple conversations or small, imperfect attempts at whatever specific skill you are currently trying to master are the actual building blocks of lasting confidence.
Yeah, you practice a little bit every single day. You engage your muscle memory whenever you have the chance. And most crucially of all, you have to stop viewing mistakes as a threat.
Because an error is not a failure of character. It is simply neutral data.
Neutral data. I love that.
Yeah, it's just another necessary adjustment in the biological process of growing a new neural pathway.
The text leaves us with the deeply reassuring reminder that you do not need difficult words or complex maneuvers to genuinely connect with people. Simple is enough. Natural is the ultimate goal, not perfect.
As we wrap up this analysis, I want to leave you with a thought to really mull over, expanding on that idea that perfection is often the enemy of progress. Think back to that opening scenario, that visceral feeling of freezing up despite all your meticulous preparation.
Yeah.
If you are intellectually capable of constructing a flawlessly engineered, grammatically perfect sentence in your head, but the immense pressure of delivering that perfection leaves you too paralyzed to actually speak the words out loud. Is it possible that your pursuit of perfection is actually the single biggest barrier to true human connection?
Wow.
It makes you wonder, in your own life, in whatever skill or relationship you are building, where are you letting the fear of being wrong keep you completely silent?
That is a powerful question to sit with. Until next time, keep practicing and don't be afraid to finally leave the cookbook behind and just turn on the stove.